Call to order Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection. First bill before us this afternoon is Senate File 2819, Senator Rarick. Welcome to the committee, Senator. Senate File 2819.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to start with, I do have a little technical author's amendment to A1. It's just changing a few numbers to make them more round, like a 98.5 feet to 100 feet, and to change metric measurements to standard measurements.
It's listed in my packet as the A3.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there it is. It's the A1. It's an author's amendment. Senator Seeberger offers the A1 author's amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then the A3 amendment that you referred to, this is an amendment. I start by addressing, in 2023, we had a local issue in Carlton County arise with a green cemetery that was being proposed. And what the county realized was the state really has no regulations around green burials, green cemeteries. And so what we did is in 23, we did a moratorium on any new green cemeteries so that we could work on some basic parameters around how they should operate in Minnesota. Unfortunately, the study that came along with that moratorium did not come out until this February. Wish we could have had that in October, so I'd have had time to work with some folks, have a bill ready back in January, and have a better discussion. But we took that information. I worked with our staff here to get a bill put together based off of that report from MDH. And unfortunately, with the revisor's office being backed up, we did not get the bill jackets ready, and it was presented last Thursday. But since last Thursday, I've had a number of groups reaching out to me with their concerns of how it was drafted. The two primary ones being funeral directors and the Association of Cemeteries, and MDH also had reached out. And so the A3 amendment addresses their concerns with the bill. And Section 2 was actually redundant language on how to handle a body that's already in state statute, and this was a little bit different, so we're just deleting that section with this amendment. We had also proposed in Section 4 changing the withholding from sales from 20% to 25%. This amendment just leaves it back at the 20%. That was something that had been in place a while, so we're not changing that. In Sections 6 and 8, a concern was brought up. We defined it as spreading of ashes. The language is more appropriate to be cremated, the scattering of cremated remains. And we do have, there will be one testifier. We're going to work on a little amendment to cover some of that for future committees as well. And then one of the other concerns, which is in Section 5 and Section 7, Subdivision 5, in both of those, what came out of the study was to limit the number of bodies to 300 bodies per acre over a 100-year period, so we're not overstressing the ground. And an example that was put in was the size of the plot that would make that happen, and we had put that into the bill. The concern is that not all cemeteries can accommodate that size of a plot. So this is just removing the size of the plot, but it is leaving the number of bodies per acre. That was what we really needed to get at. And so, Mr. Chair, that's what the A3 would do. You've got a couple of letters in your packet with concerns. The A3 amendment addresses all of those concerns as far as I'm aware, and with speaking with those groups.
Thank you, Senator Rarick. The committee is grateful for your careful work with the Department of Health and also with the stakeholders. And Senator Duckworth offers the A3 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment is adopted. Do you have any further comments, or do you want to go to testifiers?
I will just say also, I have been in communication with Jewish and Muslim groups. I've still been unable to contact any tribal groups, but we'll continue to work on that. But as of right now, with their understanding of the bill, they are also good with the bill. And, you know, the basics of the bill, what we were getting at is just some basic parameters. It has a 3.5-foot minimum burial depth, and what the study from MDH also showed. So that's going to allow in rural areas, probably not worry about animals disturbing and digging up a body, but it is also that 3.5 to 4 foot range that is ideal for decomposition of a body. So we're wanting to make sure we're getting to that level. And then there's some distances from water, setbacks from property lines. That's what we're getting at with the bill, to provide some comfort for adjacent property owners who will be next to these green burial sites. So with that, Mr. Chair, I turn it over to the testifiers.
We will go to testifiers. Members of the committee, just for your information, I was having a conversation with Lead Dames yesterday. Cemeteries have bounced around in jurisdiction in the Senate over the years and now are in commerce. So that is why we are hearing this bill. So can Mr. Mark Thel and Eric Brown please come forward? Welcome to the committee, Mr. Thel. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Mark Thel. I'm a former county commissioner. When this came to light, I was challenged by how our planning and zoning could deal with something that was basically new to our county. But I'd like to begin with a kind of a story. And Senator Wickland was here originally when we started the discussion, and thank you for your efforts and allowing us to establish that moratorium and a study for this procedure. So there was an archaeological dig happening in Iraq, and they were coming down where they figured there were some bodies, and these two archaeologists were digging and they were uncovering, and they got close and they find these two corpses totally intact, just preserved beyond all means. And these two had never uncovered anything like that. So then they cleaned it up a little bit more, and then they figured, well, we've got to go find the head manager that's where we're working under to figure out what we should do next. And so the head person came over and he says, well, you two are now the world's most famous archaeologists that ever walked on the face of the earth. He says, with these totally intact bodies, do you realize that the only two people these can be is Adam and Eve? And they were saying, well, why would you say that? How, without no DNA, no recognition of what this means? And he says, well, look, he says, there are no belly buttons here. There are no belly buttons, so that's how we would describe. And as you go through the centuries of time, this is what human burials are about, is recorded data and also the reverence for the human body. So in our discussions back and forth, our group has never been against natural burial. What it came down to is there's no rules of the road. There's no real comprehension. In a discussion with our planning and zoning as a county unit, we don't always like mandates from the state to say you have to perform this and this and this. There's mechanisms in this, the way Senator Rarick, and thank you so much for all the work you've done to carry this forward to us. The health study is where I would like to give you some context a little bit about, is we were assuming when this came that the sandy soils were okay, slopes, nobody knew distance from water. So now with this health study that's been done, these setbacks from water bodies, from wells, so we're not contaminating. We're looking the conservation component, because I served 20 years as a soil and water supervisor, plus being on the county board for a number of years too. Conservation and preservation of the natural ecocycles is paramount to good decisions moving forward. So if you look at what's in the bill, it describes depth of burial, which was a very concern to our constituents that we had. No, were they going to be 2 feet down? Would animals be bringing up body parts and dragging them into our backyards? That's what has been pretty well clarified by this research paper, that the 3.5-foot depth should cover all these aspects. And the other thing is you look across the state, you have a region that has calcium soils in the southwest part of the state. A lot of cemeteries aren't permitted because you really can't go there. And so sometimes water bodies too close, depth to where you would place the human body. So this language to clarify some of this and given the counties then permission to go back into their planning and zoning. And this is the future. We can see that happening, but let's make the road so that everybody can migrate through that regulation and serve the community that wants to go that way.
Thank you, Mr. Thel. Can you please make room for Senator Carolyn Lane? Mr. Brown, please introduce yourself and proceed.
Good afternoon. I'm Eric Braun. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee, for your time today. 2 years ago, I testified in a city Senate committee favoring this moratorium on green burial cemeteries, largely for personal reasons. I'll be very honest with you. A new green burial cemetery was being planned for my neighborhood. I had several opportunities to converse with the property owner and of learning of his plans to create this memorial park with nature trails, wildflowers. While I wasn't thrilled with the idea of a cemetery being in my backyard, it was and still is his property, and as such, he should be able to do with this property within the means permitted by law and zoning. However, after more conversations with him and learning of his plan to hand dig graves using a burial depth that was less than what my veterinarian recommended for burying my dogs, how close some of the grave sites would be to a spring which was on the property, I began to do some research only to find out that everything he was planning was currently still permitted. I appreciated the time and effort that Senator Rarick expended working on getting this moratorium passed and resulting MDH green burial study. The recommendations of that study, many of which are incorporated in this bill, seem to me to make a great deal of sense. I believe the general public would be surprised to learn that several of the regulations in this bill are not already codified in Minnesota law. I know that I was. I've been in ministry for 25 years. I've sat with many grieving families planning a funeral service. I can't recall one time anyone ever having a question about such things as burial depth or how close to a water source their loved one might be placed. I believe they just assumed it would be done well. And for a moment, I would like you to consider the possibility of the shock for a grieving family if their assumptions, the recommendations of the MDH study, were not realized when upon reaching the grave site. I, for one, would not want to be the officiant of that funeral service. Thankfully, that's never been the case for me. I've had some very difficult funerals, minus 30 below, standing with families, waiting for the gravesite to be covered over, but it wouldn't even come close to the shock of coming upon a gravesite that was too close to water or not the proper depth. Now, however, at this point in time, I know that my assumptions cannot be guaranteed, that it would be done correctly. It has given me reason to rethink the way I plan to do funeral services. At this point in time, Lord willing, not having to have one, I'm grateful. But if the need ever arose in the near future of having to officiate a funeral, I would certainly have to have a private conversation with the cemetery if I was unaware of their practices, and the funeral director in caution a grieving family. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you will take some thoughtful consideration for this bill moving forward.
Thank you for your testimony, Pastor. Can you make room for Dominic Pierre, please? Senator Lane, welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Carolyn Lane, former senator. Just 2 days ago, on Sunday, I, and along with the executive director of Resurrection Cemetery in Mendota Heights, gave a presentation on green burials to St. Cabrini's Church in Minneapolis. There is a deep interest, has been a long time, and is an increasing interest in green burials. And in my PowerPoint, I have one slide on the number of green burials that we have already and that have been going on for a number of years. There's 8 listed here, including the new one that will come online as soon as the moratorium ends, and has always been doing it according to proper methods. The Natural Funeral Directors Association 2024 Consumer Awareness and Preference Report says 68% of the population in America is interested in exploring green funeral options. Green burials have been done in America for the last 30 years without any problems or concerns. The Green Burial Council offers information and guidance and also certification to those who meet their high standards, as does, for instance, Resurrection Cemetery, one of 2 certified green burials in the area. And the report that was done by MDH called on the Green Burial and quoted the Green Burial Council for much of the research that they already have out there on green burials. So in essence, this bill is not needed. All is going fine now. However, the legislature did ask the MDH to do a study to confirm this, and they did. And it's mostly their recommendations that are in this bill. The ones that aren't are the ones that Senator Rarick is taking out for the cemeteries who do or don't do green burials. They were bothered by some of the things in this bill, what Senator Rarick has taken out. So as I say, the only thing that I would be concerned about was this ash spreading, which there is no definition, and it is not ashes after a cremation. That's just a colloquial term. It is actually the ground-up skeleton structure, so that is what's left over after a cremation, whether it's a flame cremation or a water cremation, which is alkaline hydrolysis. What is left over and given to the families is the ground-up skeletal structure. And so the word for that is cremains. For flame cremation, it's called cremated remains, and for alkaline hydrolysis, it's called hydrolyzed remains. So having those in the definitions in 149A, we need to, and I've discussed this with Senator Rarick, not just say cremated remains, because that would legally not allow the cremated remains from water cremation. So hydrolyzed and cremated remains would be the proper way to say that. So that's the only thing that I'm concerned about in the bill itself, and I thank Senator Rarick for his work, but I do want to emphasize that green burials have been popular for a long time, are very popular at this time, as was the reception we got at St. Cabrini's on Sunday. I have actually, since I did a bill on removing embalming from the laws here in 2010, I did 50 different presentations from 2010 to 2019 on home funerals and green burials. So I have been talking about this for a long time, speaking about the places that do it and showing pictures of how it's done. And we know the dynamics, as the Green Burial Council has laid out. We know that it has to be about 3.5 feet down, or there's no microbes there to do the work. So there are these things that are very well known, and it has, previous to what we call the conventional times, been the way bodies have been buried for eons and eons and eons. Now people are asking for it because it's much more gentle and less costly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Mr. Pierre, please introduce yourself and proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Klein and members of the committee. My name is Dominic Pierre. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the Minnesota Association of Cemeteries. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief statement. The Minnesota Association of Cemeteries was very pleased to meet with Senator Rarick yesterday. We appreciate his time and thoughtful engagement with our concerns. He addressed many of the issues we raised, particularly those related to potential consumer confusion and possible short and long-term negative implications of the bill. For that, we are grateful. Senator Rarick has agreed to adjust of the primary concerns we raised, and we thank him sincerely for taking the time to meet with us and his willingness to work with our association. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the discussion, and the Minnesota Association of Cemeteries is committed to continued collaborations on Senate File 2819. Thank you.
Thank you. Member questions or comments? The plan will be to send this over to state government. I don't know if the language change suggested by Senator Lane is something that you're receptive to, Senator Rarick, but that could be. Is there a member of the audience that would like to testify?
please.
Yeah, please come forward. Please introduce yourself and proceed, and try to keep it to about 2 minutes if you could.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. My name is Matt Connell, and I'm the Carlton County Green Burial guy. Without getting into too many details, I'm deeply involved in the green burial movement. I've devoted my heart and soul to not only making natural burial more easily available in Minnesota, but making it normal again. I say again because it used to be simply called burial. It is and has been a common practice since the dawn of man. It's still commonly practiced in Minnesota by my Muslim, Jewish, Amish, and Mennonite friends and neighbors, among many others. Most cemeteries have also long offered something known as simple burial, without embalming fluid or any other unnecessary extras for those who ask. So, since it's already so common, why are we now coming up with new laws and regulations as though natural burial were something new? This is why I feel that not only was the moratorium unnecessary, but I actually witnessed the harm this restriction caused firsthand. If there's a silver lining here, it's that with the state study, it's now abundantly clear that natural burial is not a threat to anyone. Do we need a new set of laws just for natural burial? Why are we singling out green burial in any way? Shouldn't we be doing studies on the harm to our environment caused by conventional burial? That, I assure you, would likely be a much bigger study that would lead to far more extensive new regulations. I'm not trying to suggest that if anyone here would prefer a conventional burial, that's wrong or bad. I'm simply pointing out the double standard. I don't hold any anger towards anyone, senators and representatives included, who are or have been confused on the issue of green burial. I have compassion and understanding toward everyone involved. I simply ask that we stop this right here. This bill is simply unnecessary. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Speak.
Senator Wickland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As was mentioned, this has been something that came through my committee 2 years ago. You know, we put in place the language that had the study to be completed and so on, and we're here today. I guess I wanted to find out whether, you know, if these requirements are put in place, and I don't know if it's a question for you, Senator Rarick, or for Senate Council, if we put these requirements in place, would they have an impact on existing cemeteries that already utilize practices that are being laid out as the green burial practices? And would they have to follow the requirements then?
Ms. Siverson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate File 2819 doesn't have an explicit effective date, which means the default effective date is August 1st, 2025. Moving forward, cemeteries that offer these services would have to comply with the requirements, but it wouldn't be retroactive to anything that's already occurred.
Senator Wickland.
And can you clarify, like, if a cemetery has additional space or they grow, is it still just that they don't have to comply?
Ms. Siverson.
So if after the, date that it's effective, any time that there's a green burial or scattering of cremated remains, they would have to comply with these requirements.
Okay.
Senator Wickland.
So I guess I'm still thinking about this, and I think this bill, it does need to come back through my committee. I think we need to have more discussion about that. Just what are the implications going forward? I mean, if a cemetery uses these practices, but they don't call themselves out as a green burial cemetery, it sounds like they still would need to comply with these requirements. And I just want to make sure that we're not inadvertently causing an impact on cemeteries that are being planned, and they may have existing practices that are very similar, but maybe they aren't using the same burial depth or some of the other requirements. Just want to make sure that we understand what the full impact would be of passing this bill. So.
Any comments, Senator Rarick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Wickland, yes, I've been working with the groups these last few days. Part of the A3 amendment, the cemetery folks, we had put in the plot size, and which was going to be an issue for some of our older cemeteries that maybe couldn't comply with that. So we pulled that piece out. So I'm continuing to work with them. Again, I've reached out to had some conversations with an imam, Imam Youssef, and with the JCRC folks, and they've looked at the bill, and they do not see that it is going to interfere with any of their traditions or practices. So I'm continuing to make sure that we're working around those and hearing all of that. The intent is not to stop these natural burials, just to have some common sense things in place that they'll meet certain requirements. And what the MDH study showed is that there's a number of states around the country who have very similar things in place. They compiled that together, and that's kind of how they came up with the recommendations that are at the end of their study, and that's what we went by with this bill. So yeah, Minnesota would not be the first place to put in these guidelines and requirements.
Okay. That's all, I guess, that I have for questions right now. Thanks.
Other comments? Any closing comments, Senator Rarick?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I guess there was one other piece that was brought up that I wanted to bring before this committee that is not currently in the bill, but I think is in the jurisdiction of your committee, just to throw out for thought that any new cemetery that is out there, there's 20% of the funds going into a care and improvement fund. And a question was brought up, should there be some type of bond or something? And I did speak with Aaron Cocking. Insurance industry would have something that could be considered a performance bond. I don't know if that's, I don't have that in the bill, but thought that was maybe something for this committee to think about if you thought that would be appropriate for this until the fund got to a certain level.
So, yeah, Senator Rarick and I discussed this. The fund you're talking about, I think, is a 20% fee on current burials, and it goes to this regenerative fund, basically, that's used in case that cemetery ever needs to be developed or something, and they need to, make sure it's safe for use. And the question would be, what if a cemetery just sort of starts and they only have 3 or 4 burials, and then they move on, and they haven't really contributed much to this fund, and there's not enough money in it to sort of help regenerate the land. So could the insurance industry in that circumstance sort of issue a bond to the developer? And apparently the insurance industry has told you that they could. But what you're telling this committee is that you haven't legislated that they will.
Correct, Mr. Chair. That's not something I had put into the bill. It wasn't something I was thinking about. It was just a thought that had been raised to me by some folks as we were talking about it. I'm agnostic on that one either way. Just thought it being the purview of your committee might be something you have thought about or talked about in the past and would maybe want to.
Any comments from the committee on this? Senator Rarick, we're going to let you keep working on that, but I think we'll go ahead and pass this on to the next committee today. So the question is on the motion of Senator Green that Senate File 2819 is amended, be recommended to pass and refer to the Committee on State and Local Government. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome to the committee, Senator Draheim. Senate File 2498 is in front of us.
Thank you, Chair Klein and members. First off, I'd like to thank my co-authors, yourself, Senator Klein, and Senator Uckey. I know we have a long history of trying to do the right thing when it comes to insurance here in Minnesota. And, you know, there's a couple 100,000 Minnesotans that rely on these supplemental plans. And the goal is to get it right long-term. So these people on fixed incomes can take advantage of these plans. And I believe that there's some tweaking we need to do. And I know, Senator Klein, you believe there's some tweaking that we might need to do too. And everybody has their own ideas. This is our idea on what we think we can do to ensure long-term success for these seniors. And with that, if it's okay with you, Chair, I'd like to turn over the testifier.
Sure, Senator Draheim. And as a co-author, I'll just make a couple more comments on the bill before we go to testifiers. Just that 2 years ago, members, we changed sort of the regulations around these supplemental Medicare products. They're for seniors who want to buy a supplemental insurance in addition to what Medicare provides for them. And there was concern that with those changes, rates would go up significantly. We asked the department to study it. They gave us some information back. We put a delay on implementing our changes to supplemental Medicare policies, and they are not scheduled to go, or they are not currently in effect. In the governor's budget, as you'll hear later today, or the governor's policy bill, there are some alterations to supplemental Medicare policy language. What the bill that Senator Draheim is bringing would be a simple full repeal of what we did 2 years ago. And the question before this committee is, you know, sort of that tension between the governor's proposal and just undoing what we did 2 years ago. And with that, I'll go to Mr. Dolan from Blue Cross. Please introduce yourself.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Seamus Dolan, Director of Government Relations from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota. For more than 90 years, Blue Cross has been carrying out its mission to pave the way for everyone to achieve their healthiest life. A nonprofit, taxable organization, Blue Cross is the leading health plan in Minnesota, covering 2.5 million members and serving all 87 counties in the state. We strongly urge your support of Senate File 2498, a bill that will advance the affordability of Medicare supplement plans for over 200,000 seniors, many who live on fixed incomes. These plans, also known as Medigap, provide comprehensive coverage and budget predictability to seniors by protecting them from out-of-pocket expenses not covered by traditional Medicare. However, 2023 legislation set to go into effect next year will make sweeping changes to the market and potentially make Minnesota an outlier in the country. Based on historical data from our 145,000 members, we predict a staggering 90% premium increase over current rates by the 5th year due to the 2023 law. Our actuaries explored various alternatives to mitigate this challenge, including a late enrollment penalty, which would need to be 120% to have a meaningful impact. The only viable solution is a repeal. Senate File 2498 simply repeals the 2023 law before it is set to go into effect, reinstates the prior law that was removed, and ensures that existing guaranteed issue rights for Minnesotans are preserved. These rights include the initial 6 months of enrollment for Medicare-eligible individuals and extend to other qualifying events. During this period, an enrollee cannot be charged higher premiums based on health, nor require medical underwriting. We strongly urge the committee to support this bill and preserve the affordability of the market. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Mr. Dolan, before you leave, can I just ask you a question? You said that your industry estimates are that if we go ahead with our supplemental Medicare policy that we've passed, premiums would go up by 90%. I think we have a study from the Department of Commerce that says it would be more like 6%. Can you explain the discrepancy?
Mr. Chair, Senator, our information is based on the data of our 145,000 members, as well as historical changes in the market with a couple years back, there were Medicare cost plans that closed in certain parts of the state. And just within our within the totality of our membership and our, historical experience, we believe that the premium increase will be 90% over 5 years. I believe the Department of Commerce data showed an increase of, I think, 16 to 20% over 5 years. and happy to stay around and answer other questions.
Thanks. Can we have Dana Bacon please come forward? Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Certainly, Mr. Chair and members. I'm Dana Bacon, Senior Director, State Government Affairs for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We were one of the organizations that testified in support of the 2023 legislation. Reason being, blood cancer patients get diagnoses that are not easy to predict. You don't look back in your family history. In most cases, you don't look back at exposure to anything. It comes by surprise. And when you're a senior citizen signing up for Medicare, you're making decisions that effectively stick with you for the rest of your life. I took a look at the list of medical conditions that if you were to apply for a Blue Cross plan right now, for Medigap, if you had cancer in your history, diabetes in your history, MS, heart attack, the list goes on. If you've had those in the last 5 years, they are not going to sell you a Medigap plan. Part of the reason this is a challenge for us is that if you sign up for a Medicare Advantage plan, you're facing a higher likelihood of a narrow network. You're facing scrutiny of prior authorization for treatment. We want our patients to have the flexibility they need to see the right doctor at the right time and not have to face these types of concerns. In addition to that interest, I'd want to, sorry, Mr. Chair? Okay. I'd also like to point out October 2024, KFF, National Health Policy Organization, took a look at the Medigap markets across the country. They reported there's no correlation between guaranteed issue, community rating, and premiums. I mean, for example, there are 5 states currently that have something on the books similar about Medigap. It's New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, and now Rhode Island. If you were to look at the average Plan F premiums, you'd see New York is highest. They are just highest on everything. But the next 4 highest are Indiana, Nebraska, Maryland, and West Virginia, 4 states that have done none of this. If you go look at Connecticut's average premium, it's $217 a month. If you look at Massachusetts, it's $216. I'm saying all of this because the Department of Commerce has given you a 39-page estimate that you can look at top and down. This shows its math and how they landed on this. You can look at prices around the country. These policies have been on the books for a long time. We haven't seen the spikes, but what we will see if you put this policy into place is blood cancer patients, the folks AARP represents, they gave you a letter as well, disability rights groups, all saying we still don't have the flexibility to make choices, and our pre-existing conditions are still held against us. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Bacon. And Mr. Neumeister, did you want to testify? Welcome back to the committee. Mr. Neumeister, please introduce yourself and let us know.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, my name is Rich Neumeister. I usually am not involved in the insurance world. Last time it was 1979, 1889, 1990 on the Fair Insurance Privacy Law that I was chief bottle washer for in terms of someone who was pushing it. This is personal for me, and I generally don't lobby on things that are very personable to me. I've now been on Medicare supplement for 5 years. I'm someone who took an interest when this bill was introduced. It's very clear to me that I think there will be some 200,000 folks who are Medicare supplement. A fair number of them are of limited income. They will be priced out. And so what will happen to those people who have since the beginning have done some things. Now, when a policymaker heard that I was interested in this, and as you know, Mr. Chair, I worked with you last year to extend the year extension so everybody could look at that study that came out very late in the session last year. One of the people who were pushing the bill had a number of their constituents call me and said, why are you we need this. And so this is what my comments are based on what happened. I generally support Senate File 2498, which addresses Medicare supplement insurance in Minnesota. However, I care deeply about my senior colleagues and the impact on those who have pre-existing conditions. I'd like to suggest ways to ensure legislation works for everyone. As I said to Mary Jo George, who I worked on last year to extend that, again, across, everybody of the same has interest in this. We want to create a win-win outcome. I propose the following solutions. Protect against underwriting for common conditions. Add a provision to prohibit underwriting for widespread pre-existing conditions. This would allow older Minnesotans with these health issues to be unfairly priced out of coverage. Offer financial support, provide subsidies or tax credits to older Minnesotans who face higher premiums due to their health status. This would keep affordable for those affected by underwriting. Now, Connecticut, as you know, you can get subsidized through, like in our state, Minnesota Human Services, where there's a certain amount where I'll pay for the Part B coverage, which generally, the Medicare supplement would cover. After their bill passed, they increased that share amount, so a greater number of people of lower income could, get Medicare supplement. Here in Minnesota, we have a very low rate, only, I think it's $20,000 or less, where you can get some help from that. The other point is create a safety net high-risk pool or reinsurance program, MTRA or something like that. And if all comes worst, extend the implementation date if you need to. These adjustments would protect seniors with pre-existing conditions while preserving the bill's aim. Insurers could still manage risk. Seniors could access affordable coverage regardless of health status, and Minnesota could move toward a fair health care system, a win-win. And I believe for all of us older Minnesotans, that even with some of the people who I had some deep conversations with who were asking, why are you delaying, wanting to delay? I explained, but then they told me their situations. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, it's not usually I read from a statement but this is one that really hits me personally, and I would like to share. Put the thinking hats on and hope we can come with a win-win. Thank you.
We will do that, Mr. Neumeister. Can you please forward your prepared comments to my committee administrator, Mr. Lunzer, for our consideration? Questions from the committee? Any closing comments?
First off, Chair Klein, thank you for hearing the bill. Like I said, I know there's other options out there and other proposals. But, like I said, it's a balancing act. If we could see in the future, we would know if the agency's right at 20% or Blue Cross is ready or correct at 90%. The answer, more than likely, somewhere in between. But last thing we want are less people on insurance. And so how do we find that balance? I think this is one idea that I know will work. It's just if we want to go and erase what we did 2 years ago. But I'm afraid if we don't, we're going to have a lot less than 200,000 people on these policies. And I think that's the goal, is to give seniors on fixed income peace of mind. So thanks for the consideration.
Thanks for presenting the bill. Senate File 2498 as amended, not as amended. Senate File 2498 will be laid over. Welcome to the committee. Senator Duckworth, Senate File 2822 is in front of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. This is just a bill that seeks to make a couple of minor changes. It's important to note that the Department of Commerce has been consulted. They're on board with it. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to my testifier who can do a much better job going through the bill. Thank you.
Welcome to the committee. Ms. Kuvas, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Teresa Kuvas. I work for the Minnesota Bankers Association. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. I'd like to thank Senator Duckworth and Senator Klein for co-authoring this legislation. So last session, the Department of Commerce Financial Institutions Technical Policy Bill changed mortgage amount thresholds in statute 4720 from 100,000 to 806,000. Last year, when we approached the Department of Commerce, whether that was going to impact all mortgages made in other statutes, they didn't think that it was going to, but that ends up being not the case. After session, we did have a couple members that came and said that they were going to be impacted by the change last year. It was also only made by state chartered banks and mortgage lenders. Nationally chartered banks and credit unions weren't impacted by this. So the two simple changes within the bill is actually to just give us a little bit more time to make sure that our documents are up to date, to reflect those changes from 4720 from last year. So anything last year would be optional for compliance, and then they will be up to speed by August of this year. And then the other change was to allow for electronic notice in a foreclosure situation if agreed to in writing by the mortgage lender and the borrower, and it also replaces the requirement for certified mail with first-class mail. So that is all the bill does. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Senator Duckworth, Senate File 2822 will be laid over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, next we're hearing Senate File 2794, Senator Klein.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. Senate File 2794 is the Department of Commerce policy bill, one of them. This bill removes a requirement that a conventional or cooperative apartment loan or contract for deed be made at an interest rate equal to the Federal National Mortgage Association posted yields on a 30-year mortgage commitment for delivery within 60 days on interest rates published in the Wall Street Journal. The bill instead requires that these interest rates to be based off of the most recently published U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau interest rate index. If the index is unavailable, the Department of Commerce can adopt a substitute index.
All right, thank you. It looks like you also have an A1 author's amendment. Would you like to move that amendment?
So moved.
All right. As to Senator Klein's motion to adopt the A1 amendment, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, the A1 is adopted.
Madam Chair, in my packet, it's the A2. I'm just
Oh.
making sure we did the right thing there.
The A2 is to the A1. The A2 is the A2 is coming later.
Okay, the A2 amends the A1, right? And it's,
We'll just stick with this. I'll be with Wednesday.
oh,
Do you want to offer it now? We can go to testifiers first.
all right, we'll go to testifiers first, and then we'll finagle the A1, A2 situation. Senator Klein. Who do we have? Mr. Smith, please introduce yourself and begin your testimony.
Chair Seeberger, members of the committee, my name is Sam Smith, and I'm here to testify in support of this legislation on behalf of the Department of Commerce. This proposal has two components. I'll start by describing the mortgage indexing section. This proposal will codify the interpretive opinion that was released by the department to provide interim usury guidance concerning second lien mortgage-related products. In the Fannie Mae index, previously known as the required net yield, is the benchmark index that we use in state statute to govern these products. On June 3rd, 2024, Fannie Mae stopped posting the RNY, and as of August 1st, 2024, the maximum interest rates under this section became impossible for the department to calculate. To provide a stable market for these types of second lien products, we are substituting the RNY with the average prime offer rate, or APOR. This substitution is supported and used by other states, impacted states, and is also supported by the Minnesota Mortgage Association. A second provision governs the maximum interest rate charged for conventional loans, and regardless of its loan size, it is governed under 47.2 subdivision 4A, so it's a technical change there. To the amendment, this is model language coming from the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, or NAIC, with model laws governing group capital calculation and liquidity stress testing requirements. The NAIC is a national organization that works to provide uniformity and transparency around how individual states regulate insurance products and has been heavily vetted by both organizations like the Department of Commerce and our industry partners. The requirements in this bill will provide additional metrics and transparency for the Department of Commerce to assess run-on-the-bank risk solvency conditions for Minnesota companies. These changes must be adopted by January 1st, 2026 for Minnesota to meet NAIC accreditation standards. Almost all other states have already adopted these changes to their insurance regulations. Adding them to Minnesota statutes would ensure that we maintain strong insurance solvency requirements on par with other jurisdictions. And would add that due to challenges getting the bill jacketed, we were forced to introduce this language as an amendment, and apologies for any confusion that may have resulted because of that. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple, mostly for the department. So I understand, I think based on what you just said, a good portion of this bill is essentially federal conformity, doing things that we likely need to in order for these organizations to continue to operate the way they would like to in the state of Minnesota. Is that correct?
Mr. Smith.
Chair Seeberger, Senator Duckworth, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, if I may, just one more.
Senator Duckworth.
Could you please elaborate on the need for, or the Department of Commerce's assessed need for some sort of limitations regarding interest rates as it relates for a contract for deed transactions? Is there something that's occurring? Are there a lot of cases of people being taken advantage of? Just want to make sure I understand that I know where this is coming from.
Is that
Mr. Smith.
the provision, Chair Seeberger, Senator Duckworth, is that, assuming that you're talking about the second provision in the original bill, that's fixing a technical mistake that was made in another bill?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we're just fixing a technical error. And the only reason I ask is I know oftentimes contract for deeds are used for very specific reasons. The buyers might have very specific circumstances that sometimes leads to a little bit of a higher interest rate. So long as it's a technical fix and we're not necessarily eliminating an option that people find pretty beneficial in those circumstances, I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from members of the committee? Senator Wickland, or Wickstrom, as I like to call you.
Madam Chair, I wondered if I could offer the A2 amendment?
Yeah, Senator Wickland, it's being redrafted real quick since the original A2 amended the A1, so now it has to be amended to, or redrafted to amend the bill. So we're waiting for that to happen. And then you can.
Then I can.
All right. Okay, so we'll take a 2-minute recess while we wait for that to happen.
Did Senator Wickland talk to you about that?
order. And I believe we are ready with the A2 amendment. Senator Wickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I believe that I'm going to offer an oral amendment to the bill, and Mr. Hudala can read the oral amendment for me.
Mr. Dalla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Senator Wickland noted, this will be an oral amendment, not the A2, which the A2 amended the prior amendment. This is to the bill directly. Senator Wickland moves to amend Senate File 2794 as follows. Page 3, after line 8, insert Section 2. Minnesota Statutes 2024, Section 62D.221 is amended by adding a subdivision to read, Subdivision 3, exception. Notwithstanding Subdivision 1, health maintenance organizations are not subject to oversight under this section for Section 62D.20, Subdivision 1, Paragraph A, Clauses 7 to 9, and Paragraph F.
All right, on Senator Wickland's motion to,
I can
Oh.
present. I just was waiting for you to acknowledge me, and I can talk about it.
Gotcha, Senator Wickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this amendment, we discovered, or Senate Council, in reviewing the A1 amendment, found that there was a way that the Department of Health would be drawn into the impact of the language in the A1 amendment. Last year, in 2024, we passed a bill that related to HMO conversions, and it adds language that provides for the Department of Health to perform more oversight of transactions. And that is the section of statute that Mr. Hudala referenced, that where this exception will go. And we felt that the Department of Health didn't want to be drawn into having the capabilities that are being granted through the paragraphs, Paragraph A, clauses 7 to 9, and Paragraph F. They do need the capabilities that are in some of the other parts of that section, but they don't need to be drawn into these particular paragraphs. So, or this particular paragraph and clauses. And so the amendment would just say that with, notwithstanding the other parts, these would be excluded from the Commissioner of Health having oversight capabilities.
Senator Klein, any comment on the amendment?
Senator Wickland and I have discussed this. This is a friendly amendment and sort of removes this bill from having to take a pathway through HHS. In addition, it was quite a long oral amendment, but I would point out it's almost identical to the language contained in members' packets, which is the A1. Thank you.
A2.
A2.
All right. Okay, any further discussion from the committee on the on the amendment, the oral amendment that very closely mirrors the A2 as in the packet? Senator Rest.
Madam Chair, it's a very complicated amendment, even though it seemed like a simple explanation. I really would like to see it in writing at some point, if not now. Just a request.
Senator Rest, if you look at the A2 amendment that's in your packet, that is the language that was moved as an oral amendment. I believe the problem with the written piece here was that it amended, if you look at the top, it amends the A1 amendment, which we couldn't do because we already adopted the A1. So we're doing this as an oral amendment. Does this help you out?
Okay. Confusing to me.
Any other discussion from the committee on the oral amendment that very closely mirrors the A2? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, oral amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. The amendment is adopted. Senator Klein, any further comment on Senate File 2794 as amended?
No, Madam Chair.
Where are we going with this? This one? All right. Senator Klein, would you like to move your bill?
Madam Chair, I move that Senate File 2794 as amended be recommended to pass and moved to the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety.
On Senator Klein's motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carries, and the bill is on its way. Our next bill is you again, Senator Klein, and it will be 2477. Senator, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee. This is a fairly complex policy provision from the Department of Commerce, and I'm going to turn it over to my testifier for explanation.
Senator Klein, I have an A1 here. Did you want to adopt that first?
So moved, Madam Chair. I move the A1.
All right, Senator Klein moves the A1 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. The motion carries and the amendment is adopted.
I do have A2 amendment. When would you like to hear that?
When do you want to hear the A2? Okay. We can hear that now, Senator Dames, if you like.
Thank you.
Senator, yeah, to your amendment, Senator Dames.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Klein, I have the A2 amendment. And what this amendment does is it deals with guaranteed renewability. And with your permission, Madam Chair, I'll ask the Klein Andreessen to come up and read the amendment.
Okay. All right, Mr. Andreessen, would you like to come forward, please, and walk us through the A2 amendment? Can you identify yourself, please, for the record and begin?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Dan Andreessen with the Minnesota Council of Health Plans. So the A2 amendment is kind of a different version of amending the guaranteed renewability statute that's in the bill. The language in this would adhere to what federal conformity on this matter. Most states follow this type of path, and so Minnesota is kind of an outlier. And so the language in this amendment would matches up to what the feds have kind of been using in other states. Essentially what it's saying is that health plans right now under state law, even if one person is in a health plan product, they must keep it on the market. And we have some of our products from our plan members who it's single-digit number of enrollees within that plan. And so we're seeking to have the ability to, if the enrollment gets very low, that we can move them to another comparable plan. There is an administrative cost to continuing holding out products that have very small enrollment. And so in the amendment, it states that health plans would need to give that enrollee 90 days notice if they're planning on changing that product. Before that, they would need to give Department of Commerce 30 days notice. And then in Section 5 of the amendment outlines what plans would need to do in order to be considered a comparable product. So that product would have to be very similar in terms of network, co-pays, cost-sharing structure, benefits. So the goal is to move them to a product that is already out there being used, but is very similar, and then we can sunset those products.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for Mr. Andreessen. Do you want mind coming back?
Mr. Andreessen, can you come back? Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Andreessen. So with the A2 amendment, if this is adopted, is it comply with federal conformity? And is there, so this would accomplish federal conformity if the A2 is adopted?
Mr. Andreessen.
Madam Chair, Senator Rasmussen, that's correct.
Senator Klein, any thoughts on the A2?
Madam Chair, I would like the department to have a chance to respond. I believe their language surrounding this sort of sunsetting of very small membership plans is different, and they may have their reasons why they wrote it the way they did.
All right. Mr. Smith.
Chair Seeberger, members, I will walk through the portion of our bill that touches on this issue that Mr. Andreessen raised, and certainly an issue that the Department of Commerce is concerned with. Our proposed language in the bill brings Minnesota into closer alignment with federal laws and allows for insurance companies to discontinue offering certain individual health plans as well. Under current laws, carriers can only discontinue offering plans if they leave the market. The result is insurers are left maintaining plans with low enrollment, which, when we agree, this discourages innovation in the market and increases administrative cost and complexity for plans. Where our two proposals differ is that our change still offers perhaps more protections for Minnesotans, including offering individuals in the discontinued plan the option to purchase a different plan. And I think most importantly, the Commissioner of Commerce would also retain the authority to disapprove an insurer's decision to discontinue a plan if we don't believe that that choice is in the best interest of Minnesotans. And so we would continue to have some discretion, but certainly agree with the core direction that both proposals take, which is to provide additional flexibility to private health plans when they have plans with very low enrollments. There's no winners there in most situations. Thank you. And so we prefer our language and would ask that the amendment not be adopted.
Senator Dames. All right, the A2 amendment is withdrawn. All right, two-year bill then, Senator Klein, as amended. We can go to your first testifier, Mr. Smith, Sam Smith from the Minnesota Department of Commerce. Mr. Smith, when you're ready.
Chair Seeberger, thank you. And having already described one portion of the bill, I will walk through the changes our legislation makes in the med-sup markets. The Department of Commerce's proposal modifies legislation passed in 2023 to allow insurance companies to implement a 10% penalty to Minnesotans who enroll in a Medicare supplement plan outside of their initial enrollment period. Minnesotans eligible for Medicare have two choices when they first enroll. They can either enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan, also called Medicare Part C, or they can buy a Medicare supplement, also called Medigap, to help pay for services not covered under original Medicare. They cannot enroll in both at the same time. Currently, if someone is enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan and wants to switch to a Medicare supplement plan, they may be denied coverage or charged more for their plan based on their health history. In 2023, the Minnesota legislature changed this rule to allow Minnesotans to change from a Medicare Advantage plan to a Medicare supplement plan during an annual open enrollment period and not be penalized because of their health status. This change will go into effect in 2026. Commerce appreciates the intent of this change, recognizing that many people aren't fully aware of their options when they first enroll in Medicare. However, we have concerns that these changes will increase premiums, making the products appealing only to those who are sick and have significant health needs. This could cause insurers to leave the market, leaving Minnesotans with fewer and more expensive options. To better understand these changes, Commerce contracted with an actuarial firm to estimate the impact of the law change. The actuarial company, Risk and Regulatory Consulting, estimated that Medicare supplement plans would initially see an increase of 6%, in addition to any other regular rate increases the first year, and an estimated 16% increase over the current rate by 2030. To mitigate this impact, Commerce is proposing a 10% penalty to those who enroll in a Medicare supplement plan outside of their initial enrollment period. This preserves the ability for Minnesotans to still have access to Medicare supplement plans, regardless of their health status, while still maintaining more stability in the market and lower rate increases. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Our next testifier is Lisa Thimjon from the Minnesota Department of Health. Could you identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony?
Sure. Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Lisa Timian, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Minnesota Department of Health. I want to thank Senator Klein for amending these proposals from the MDH policy bills this year onto 2477 via the A1. These 4 proposals are hopefully straightforward, and we're happy to answer any questions. So the first is allowing insurers to provide explanation of benefits documents electronically. This really just modernizes the law requiring insurers to send explanations of benefits, those documents that you get summarizing your healthcare services costs and payments on paper only, and would allow them instead to send electronically if members prefer it. Plan members now have the option and increased choice to get electronically, on paper, or both. This would also remove an outdated requirement for consulting certain organizations because they are already part of our advisory process. It also gives us more flexibility, supports modern communication practices, and ensures people who prefer or need paper copies can still receive them. The next piece would be a federal conformity issue aligning network adequacy standards with federal regulation CFR 45-155.1050. This would align our current state law with federal standards, as all states are required to be by January 1st, 2026. These current standards are broader and less specific than the federal requirements, which will mandate time and distance criteria tailored by service type and county classification. This update would also include adopting federal county designations like large, metro, and rural, along with requiring health plans to provide detailed data and justifications when standards are unmet. These changes will ensure compliance and improve accessibility for Minnesotans no matter where they live, and enhances healthcare access by addressing geographic differences across the state. The third component is our prescription drug price transparency, technical fixes, and some enhancements, as well as a technical fix to our 340B language. It addresses reporting obligations for manufacturers, pharmacies, pharmacy benefit managers, and wholesalers while ensuring adequate data protection. These key changes include refining reporting requirements, improving oversight, and correcting statutory references for granting exemptions and extensions. These updates aim to strengthen data collection, support affordability efforts, and streamline processes for stakeholders. This also ensures that Minnesota continues to lead in transparency and accountability in drug pricing. And then the final component of this would be updating our regulation of health maintenance organizations. Over the last year, MDH had endeavored on a study of HMO conversions as mandated by the legislature, and this is really responsive to those findings. This updates the regulation of HMOs to align with modern insurance practices and address regulatory gaps. For instance, it applies national standards to Minnesota's HMOs, such as the NAIC, Insurance Holding Company System Regulatory Act, and Risk Management and Own Risk and Solvency Assessment Model Act. Other insurers regulated by Commerce are already subject to these provisions. These changes would enhance oversight by expanding examination scopes, improving data classification, and requiring risk and solvency assessments. These updates also ensure consistency with federal models and strengthen the regulatory framework for Minnesota's evolving HMO landscape. Modernization supports consumer protection and effective regulation in a complex insurance market by increasing consumer transparency. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Our next testifier is Dana Bacon. If you could please come forward from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thanks, Madam Chair, members. I'm Dana Bacon with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I won't belabor the point. This is the second Medigap bill we've discussed today. Just wanted to say that you're considering options for how to deal with the pros and cons of what's going on with the current law, options on the table. We're grateful that the Department of Commerce took a look at its report, and out of the options it found, it looked for ways to try to keep the most important consumer protections available while recognizing that this product needs to work for everybody in Minnesota. So thank you for your work and wanted that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bacon. Joe Selwood, if you could come forward, please. Could you state your name for the record, please, and begin your testimony?
Madam Chair, and Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Joe Selwood, testifying on behalf of the Association for Accessible Medicines, the trade association for the manufacturers of generic and biosimilar prescription medications. I'm speaking in opposition to sections 20 to 24 of the A1 amendment to Senate File 2477, When the Prescription Drug Price Transparency Act passed in 2020, AAM took a neutral position on the legislation based on the recognition of the fundamental differences between brand and generic medications through distinct price increase reporting thresholds. AAM was very involved in 2020, but has not been consulted on these significant changes. This amendment undermines that carefully negotiated framework by striking lines 8.13 and 8.14. This elimination disregards the fundamental economics of this industry, where generic drugs are priced 80 to 90% below reference brands. This change will sweep more generics into an ill-fitting reporting framework, increasing compliance costs, and flooding the department with reports of minimal price adjustments. We would urge you to maintain the distinct thresholds to reflect the affordability generics provide. The proposed change to the public posting of price information raises significant concerns about the Act's implementation to date. Despite system development costing nearly 13 times the amount estimated in the 2020 fiscal note, the program still hasn't delivered meaningful data to the public. Prior to the March 2025 update to the website, the most recent prescription drug data available was from June of 2023, a 21-month delay. And while MDH is required to post quarterly lists of drugs of substantial public interest, only 2 such lists have been released since January of 2024. One general list in June of 2024 and a second focusing on insulin in March of 25. Furthermore, we still don't have the annual report due on January 15th, though last year's annual report was completed in July, months after its statutory due date. Through robust competition, generic medicines deliver prices 80 to 90% below the reference brand. This competition, not layers and layers of reporting requirements, is what lowers drug prices for Minnesotans. AAM would respectfully ask the committee to reject sections 20 to 24 of the amendment and maintain the balanced approach that was carefully negotiated in the original 2020 legislation. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions from members of the committee? Senator Green.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for any testifier or the bill author. Mr. Selwood just referenced some things that I had marked in the bill where it strikes a lot of language for reporting. And so being still a little new to the issues in this committee, could you explain to me, it sounded like you were supposed to, that the Department of Health maybe was supposed to be giving reports and they weren't giving them, and now you're just going to say we eliminate them, we don't, if they're not going to do them, we're not going to make them do them? Is that what's going on?
Senator Klein.
Madam Chair, and I can have Ms. Timian come back. And just 2 things about this. This is language we agreed to adopt in this committee because it was late to the revisers, but it is more appropriately dealt with in the next committee stop, which is Health and Human Services. The language that Mr. Selwood is referencing relates to a bill we passed a couple years ago called the Drug Transparency Act. It requires drug manufacturers to publicly post if their prices change by a certain amount in a certain amount of time. He raises the complaint that the postings have not been all that frequent, and I'll let Ms. Timian answer that. The language that he was concerned about that was struck at 8.13 and 8.14, it sounds like we excluded in the past the need for generic medications to report if their price increased by more than 50%. Department of Health is adding that back in, so if your generic Cozar goes from $2 up to $8, that would now be subject to reporting, and they felt that it was important that that be captured in reporting. I think it's a legitimate change, but again, more the purview of the next committee stop.
Ms. Timian?
Yes. Thank you, Chair Klein. That was an excellent explanation that I would have come right out of my mouth. Great. So we would say, yes, the issue with the first cycle of reporting was delayed. We did have some hiccups as we were implementing the bill, but we do expect that it'll be timely going forward as we're learning more about this process. Again, Minnesota is nation leading in this. We do know that there is some concern around the generic manufacturers around this because they are going to then be held to the same standard as other pharmaceutical companies. And so this way, the same reporting thresholds will apply whether it's a generic or a brand name medication. Thank you.
Senator Green?
Oh, just, I think other people have questions, and I'll let them get to that. But it does, I'm looking at some information here that a lot of the reports going back all the way to 2022 were never received, and the one that was due January 15th has not been received. Can you explain what the problem might be?
Ms. Timian?
Madam Chair, Senator, I am not familiar with exactly what you're speaking of, but I'd be happy to follow up with you after committee. I'm trying to get some information on that about the delays, but I know that we're working really hard to be meeting all of the statutorily established deadlines.
Senator Green? Senator Duckworth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my question is probably going to be best for Mr. Smith, if he doesn't mind coming up. I think you're the one that mentioned this. I'll wait for you to get situated. I thought I had heard you say in explaining the bill that some aspect of it is likely to increase some form of health insurance as much as 16% at some point, and that the department's recommendation was to then impose some sort of a 10% penalty on folks that change coverage to sort of help address that. Could you just help make sense of that for me real quick? I'm not quite following why we're penalizing folks while their insurance premiums are also going up.
Mr. Smith?
Chair Seeberger, Senator Duckworth, thank you for the question. The intent with our bill is to put some downward pressure on rates. And so to give an example for how that might look, let's say someone with no urgent or pressing health conditions enrolls in Medicare Advantage, and then they get a more serious health diagnosis. Under the law that will be in effect in 2026, they could then transition to the Medicare submarket, which has more comprehensive coverage. And so our bill proposes to impose a 10% fee to reflect or to disincentivize that behavior. And so encouraging folks to get on MedSup before they have higher or more comprehensive health needs, and also encouraging them to remain in the Medicare Advantage market if not. I will acknowledge that, this is a complicated problem where I don't think there is a perfect solution before the committee here on how to address, or better yet, how to balance the needs of Minnesotans that require comprehensive care without underwriting, while also ensuring that prices and premiums aren't going to be increasing dramatically, particularly because most of the folks on these Medicare plans are older folks on fixed incomes. So it's not a perfect approach by any means, but it represents a meaningful attempt to put some downward pressure on rates.
If I may,
Senator Duckworth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly. What seems to me, it's an interesting approach. I'm not sure I'm quite on board with trying to penalize people financially for choosing to switch to an insurance coverage that they think is best for them and for their families. I think oftentimes in this committee, specific to health insurance, we always say we want to keep premiums as low as possible, and then it seems like we tend to pass legislation that results in those premiums going up. It's kind of like telling the people of Minnesota we're going to help them address the rising cost of living by increasing their taxes. Just doesn't quite add up or make sense. So I'm trying to be open-minded. I understand it is complex, hence my question. I'm a pretty simple guy. But when it comes to trying to keep things low and affordable for people, when we talk about increasing their premiums or penalizing them, that seems to be a little bit counterintuitive. Thank you.
Senator Rasmussen, did you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess I had a question for the Department of Health. And I'm just looking at, again, the Prescription Drug Price Transparency Act passed in 2020. And I guess it just doesn't look to me like it's really working, right? We haven't gotten the data. It was supposed to cost us $140,000. It cost us $1.8 million. And I think I just, heard during the testimony that this was this nation-leading bill. And I just had a question for the Minnesota Department of Health. Has this decreased drug costs for Minnesotans yet?
Ms. Timian?
Madam Chair, if I may, I would like to invite the state's health economist, Stefan Gildemeister, to the table because he's more in the weeds on this than I am.
If you could please state your name for the record and take a shot at answering the question. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Senator Rasmussen. It's a really fair question to ask.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
My apologies. Stefan Gildermeister, I direct the Health Economics Program in the Minnesota Department of Health, and I'm the state health economist. So again, it's a really fair question to ask. Has the Prescription Drug Transparency Act resulted in improvement on healthcare prices? I'll give a roundabout answer to this question, but it will still be direct. First of all, I think I would recognize that many of the challenges of the drug pricing problems relate to federal decisions around how to structure the market. Patent exemptions, protections of industry participants from transparency initiatives, special arrangements around with payers around pricing or not negotiating prices, etc. So I think this committee and other committees have on the Senate side have talked about this quite a bit. In our report, and I should say the the Prescription Drug Price Transparency Act consists of various components. Number one, it is responsible for making public price increases of a range of drugs that meet certain conditions. But secondly, also reporting the introduction of new drugs and their prices. Secondly, there's a provision of the Act that was referred to as drugs of substantial public interest, where the department is held to study the extent to which the pharmaceutical market works as intended, to what extent competition works, to what extent generics can drive prices down, etc. Over time, the legislature has added to that act. We are issuing a number of reports, and to a previous question, our most recent report is currently under review, and we're happy to share the findings with this committee. To your direct question, Senator, it is a component of our report and I don't want to say a complaint, but a recognition that transparency alone can never affect the prices. It's a necessary component for policymakers and others to consider what changes may be required to actually drive the prices down. And our report sort of includes some ideas in that direction. But just putting up prices, no, that does not change the underlying dynamics in the healthcare market.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the response on this. And I guess, I just want to caution the committee that, when we go and spend Minnesotans' hard-earned tax dollars on something, we should have something to show for it. And I guess I'm just concerned here that, again, we're talking about, reporting that just never showed up when it was required. We have something that is more than 10 times the estimated cost. And so I just think it's, as we continue to hear different proposals, just to, use this as maybe a lesson learned as to, something might sound good, right? Prescription drug price transparency sounds great, right? Sounds like a good idea. But when implemented, I don't think this is yielding the results that we were promised when this first came before us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Thanks, Stefan.
Senator Klein, final words?
No, Madam Chair, I think you have the motion at the table.
All right, the question is on the motion of Senator Wickland that Senate File 2477 as amended be recommended to pass and be re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. No. The motion passes and the bill is on its way. Our next file is Senate File 2476. Senator Klein, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is a quick technical bill, and once again, I will turn it over to Mr. Smith for an explanation.
All right, Sam Smith, can you identify yourself, please, for the record and begin your testimony?
Chair Seeberger, members of the committee, my name is Sam Smith, and I'm here to testify in support of this bill on behalf of the Department of Commerce. This bill includes a number of technical changes, including authority through rulemaking to update the broker-dealer conduct rules that have been, and replacing outdated or non-existent National Association of Securities Dealers regulations with their corresponding regulations under the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, or FINRA. There is adjustments to the technology surcharge to reflect some administrative challenges we encountered by using the calendar year instead of the fiscal year. Some clarifications around safety deposit box and their interaction with some legislation passed last session around automatic renewals. The removing requirements to include the Department of Administration in adverse determination reviews, as well as it's not necessary for them to participate, and decreasing the number of contractors we have to consider. A technical change to the security statute that authorizes continuing education requirements for broker-dealers, and then correcting a citation in the Student Loan Borrower Bill of Rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Dames.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have the A1 amendment.
Senator Dames, can you explain your amendment?
Yes. The A1 amendment deals with the effective date, and this, it just states that in Section 9, this section is effective for policies issued or renewed on or before August 1st of 2024, on or after rather, and not for policies issued or renewed prior to that date. And then the effective date of that line would be, this section is effective the day following final enactment, and that clears it up as far as what's the dates are and when it's effective. And then we'd have to renumber the sections in sequence to correct the internal references and correct the title numbers accordingly. And that would be the extent of the amendment, Madam Chair.
Senator Klein, any thoughts on the A1?
Madam Chair, Senator Dames grateful for the amendment which improves the bill.
Any questions or comments from members of the committee on the A1 amendment? All right, Senator Dames moves the A1 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. A1 is adopted. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee on Senate File 2476 as amended? Senator Wickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering if I could ask the Department of Health if they could comment on Section 7. It's sort of a part of the bill Senate Council brought to my attention that crosses over into our area of jurisdiction, and I'm just wondering, it changes it so that the Commissioners of Health and Commerce, who had some responsibility before, but now they're more fully in charge of that, or responsible for that, so just wanted to make sure that they have thought about it and if they have any comments.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Lisa Timian, Minnesota Department of Health. I believe that we have had no concerns with this and that we were part of discussions with Commerce on this piece.
Okay.
Senator Wickland?
I just wanted to, that's my only question.
Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Ms. Severson, you had something to say about Section 9.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, it's my understanding that Section 9 was supposed to be taken out of the bill, but it was not, so we're going to do an oral amendment to just remove Section 9.
Senator Klein, would you like to make that motion?
I'll make that oral amendment. Would that also, Madam Chair, question for council, take out the language that was just adopted under the A1?
Ms. Severson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, it would not.
So moved.
All right, on Senator Klein's motion to, oral amendment to eliminate section 9, which is lines, what, do I have to
I
go?
can-
Oh, that would be awesome. Ms. Severson, can you restate that oral amendment, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Klein moves to amend Senate File 2476 as amended as follows. Page 8, line 22, delete section 9.
On that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The amendment is adopted. Good. All right, no further comments or questions from the committee. Senate File 2476 as amended will be laid over. And finally, we have Senate File 2457. Senator Klein, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, this is a technical bill, policy bill from the department, and I will turn it over to Mr. Smith for an explanation.
Mr. Smith, please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Chair Seeberger, members of the committee, again, my name is Sam Smith, and I'm here to testify in support of this bill on behalf of the Department of Commerce. This legislation contains a number of important provisions that are included in talking points that are somehow not in front of me, but a key section is around the use of data calls, and the amendment that we make was developed in consultation with industry partners to ensure that there are no concerns there, and clarifies our ability to gather data without a more intrusive market conduct examination process, and ensure that that data is classified for the purpose of connecting with other, for the purposes of disseminating that data and making policy decisions. This legislation also contains NAIC model law regarding long-term health care. Currently, Minnesotans seeking long-term care insurance face a number of, frankly, impossible choices. They can either spend down their existing assets until they are eligible for Medicaid, purchase what is very expensive long-term care insurance. This policy language tries to identify a third pathway where people can apply for what is called in this legislation short-term long-term care insurance, but functionally is long-term care insurance with a smaller amount of benefits and a correspondingly smaller monthly premium. These packages are unsurprisingly quite expensive. And then finally, there is some policy changes around APSO. Many Minnesotans are unable to purchase their auto insurance in the normal market for a number of reasons, including driving history or their status as first-time drivers. For these drivers, they can obtain their health insurance through Minnesota's auto insurance plan, or APSO, which is currently under current law must use a fronting company to provide and write these products in the residual market. This is expensive and includes additional administrative costs for APSO, and also introduces uncertainty for APSO should a company be unwilling to serve as the intermediary. And so our proposal in this situation gives APSO the authority to write these policies directly, and avoiding the challenges I've just described. Thank you.
Senator Klein, I believe you had an A2 amendment to this bill, is that correct?
So moved, Madam Chair, the A2.
All right. Can you explain what the A2 does first? Oh, what?
Madam Chair, it's an author's amendment, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith to explain.
Mr. Smith?
Chair Seeberger, thank you. This language was developed in consultation with industry partners to place some guardrails around the data call provisions that I described previously. And this is consensus language. Thank you.
Senator Klein moves the A2 amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The A2 is adopted. Any questions or comments from the committee? Senator Friends.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Senator Klein. Mr. Smith, very familiar with this, and we sometimes call it by a different name, but who are the stakeholders who participated in this proposed change?
Mr. Smith.
Chair Seeberger, Senator Frentz, we collaborated with MIFC and Insurance MN on the changes.
Senator Klein? Frentz?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And who speaks for the policyholders and the future drivers who are going to benefit from these policies? I've worked in this field for about 30-plus years. It works very well. I don't know that I've heard about the administrative costs, but I'm a little concerned to see this come forward without the voice of the people that it might insure or who might be affected by changes in the administration. How is it that you brought the voice of the drivers who hopefully benefit from that into the discussion?
Mr. Smith.
Chair Seeberger, Senator Frentz, apologies. I thought you were talking about a different provision in the bill to the APSO proposal. I don't expect that the users of an APSO plan will notice any difference. The only changes are around the administration of the plans and removing, frankly, the intermediary fronting organization that is currently necessary in order to offer these plans in Minnesota.
Senator Frentz?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the indulgence, members. The intermediary is Dairyland, the companies that step in and sell the product, and then they administer the claims as well. Am I correct in that?
Mr. Smith?
Chair Seeberger, Senator Frentz, I will admit to not being an expert in how these plans are administered, and sadly, our Deputy Commissioner of Insurance is at an NAIC meeting today and was unable to attend. So I'll have to get back to you with some more specifics.
Senator Frentz?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Senator Klein. I think we'd want to know if we're going to substitute the administration of these claims. These are people who get hurt, have medical bills, have time off work. This is the same system we use in the over-the-counter market, if that's the right term, when you buy State Farm, Allstate, whatever. I'd certainly want a little more information about why we wouldn't be worried those claims would be administered differently. You know, the claims process is about half of the work, and selling the insurance, it's the part after you get the premium. So just flagging for committee members, I think we could use a little more information there. And Mr. Smith, happy to meet with you offline to talk a little bit more about it, or Senator Klein. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Dames?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Smith. So if you take the intermediaries out, you're going to do this in-house, is that what I'm understanding?
Mr. Smith?
Is there a fiscal note available on that, Madam Chair?
Mr. Smith or Senator Klein?
Chair Seeberger, Senator Dames, this it will be administered by APSO, which is an independent organization not directly affiliated with the Department of Commerce. So we don't anticipate a state cost for this change.
Follow up, Madam Chair.
Senator Dames?
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So what's the purpose of changing if you're going to go from the one intermediary to a different one in a sense? What's the purpose of changing?
Mr. Smith?
Chair Seeberger, Senator Dames, under current law and under the current practices, APSO is currently offering these products, but has to rely on an intermediary in order to write them.
And so.
Senator Dames?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry for that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Smith, how many dollars do you think you're going to be able to save by doing this?
Mr. Smith?
Chair Seeberger, Senator Dames, we don't anticipate any savings of state dollars. However, we do anticipate additional efficiencies and savings for APSO.
Madam Chair, follow up.
Senator Dames?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Smith. So give me some time of a range of how much, so the people that probably will save the money, which is good, would be the people that you're insuring. And so what kind of a reduction do you expect to have in their premiums?
Mr. Smith?
Chair Seeberger, Senator Dames, I don't have that information before me, but I'm happy to follow up.
Madam Chair?
Senator Dames?
Well, thank you for your information, Mr. Smith, but I really think that we need more information before we pass this bill out or lay it over, pay it, move it forward, because there's several questions I asked that I didn't get any answers to. And I really think that that's important. I think that this should be done to where we could see what the actual gains are. If there are gains, that's a different story. If there's not gains, that's a different story. So I would ask that this be, we get more information on this before it's moved forward.
Senator Friends.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Thanks, members. I promise I'll stop. But I'm now a little more unclear. We're going to take it out of the risk pool participants, Dairyland, the other insurers, and give it to someone else who's not Commerce? And how is that going to help us? Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith.
Senator Seeberger, Senator Frentz, APSO, as I understand it, APSO is currently operating in this market and offering auto insurance to these drivers that are not able to obtain it on the traditional auto insurance marketplace. That's not changing. The only change that's created through this policy is no longer requiring an intermediate organization to write the premium or write the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree. I think we need a little more work
Senator
here. Some of
Frentz.
us can't even quite understand what we're talking about.
Senator Dames.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Smith. So you just stated that we'd be getting rid of the intermediary. So who's going to do the job of the intermediary?
Mr. Smith.
Chair Seeberger, Senator Dames, APSO will be writing the plans themselves. Previously, they were not able to write them.
Senator Dames.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this, did you call it HO?
APSO.
HO. Who are they?
Mr. Smith.
APSO is the Minnesota Auto Insurance Plan. They are currently offering auto insurance to people that are not able to obtain it on the traditional marketplace because they're not able to purchase a plan due to their driving history, their status as a first-time driver. That is current law now and will not change with our policy bill.
Madam Chair?
Senator Dames.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Smith. I'm very familiar with the high-risk, we used to call it the high-risk plan, and I think that certainly has its place. I am quite concerned about taking the intermediaries out and moving it over there, and there are several reasons for that, which we can get into a different time, but again, I certainly would hope that we get a lot more information before this is moved forward.
Chair Klein.
Madam Chair, from some of the more insurance-savvy people on this committee, legitimate concerns have been raised. It sounds like the Deputy Commissioner, who would more fully answer those, is not available today. I'd like to move to table the bill.
All right, Senate File 2457, is this amended? As amended, will be laid on the table. And there being no further business before the committee, we are adjourned.